This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. I missed y'all yesterday. I was too busy covering the big speech up on Capitol Hill with some colleagues, which looked more like a fraternity meeting. I swear we did not plan this odd level of coordination. Anyway, here's what we got for y'all. As the US plans to pull troops out of Afghanistan, pressure is mounting to also bring along tens of thousands of Afghan interpreters who aided US troops and are waiting for relief. Plus, we'll talk to the executive producer of a new sitcom that addresses that very dynamic. But first, here's what you need to know right now. The president wants to tackle some huge social and economic problems in the country, but he needs a pretty penny to do it. During his first address to Congress last night, President Biden presented the $1.8 trillion American Families Plan. It would create universal pre-K, a federal paid leave program, and free community college, among other things. This is a follow-up to another ambitious plan from Biden, the $2.3 trillion American Jobs Plan, which focuses on the future of the country's infrastructure and creating green jobs. Both proposals aim to help out the working class and share America's wealth beyond its wealthiest citizens.
I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share.
Biden plans to present the details of both packages to Congress next week. In a rare move, the Justice Department indicted 3 men on federal hate crime and kidnapping charges for the death of Ahmaud Arbery. The 25-year-old black man was shot and killed by 3 white suspects while jogging through a South Georgia neighborhood last year. Hate crimes are notoriously hard to prosecute. In many cases, it can be hard to prove racist intent. But the DOJ alleges suspects in this case used force and threats of force to intimidate and interfere with Arbery's right to use a public street because of his race. The 3 suspects claim they followed Arbery because they thought he was a burglar, but there's no evidence that Arbery was doing anything sketchy. The 3 suspects also face several other charges on the state level. At the time Arbery was killed, Georgia was just one of 4 US states without a hate crimes law. State lawmakers have passed one since. On the federal level, this is one of several moves the Justice Department recently made in high-profile civil rights cases, including looking into the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. India has now reported more than 2,000 deaths from COVID over the last 6 days, and many health experts think that could be an undercount. Morgues are beyond capacity. New Delhi is on a strict lockdown until at least next week. India made it through the first COVID wave relatively well, but this new wave has been a very different story. Quick spreading variants, a shortage of resources, burnt out healthcare workers, and limited vaccine availability are breaking the country's healthcare system. But India's government claims things are under control. Residents took to social media to share their concerns and demand assistance earlier this week, but government officials urged Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to block certain posts criticizing the surge. Officials said the legal order was meant to control the spread of misinformation, but a policy director Newsy spoke to is skeptical of their motives.
If the Indian government was genuinely concerned about addressing misinformation that may be just on social media platforms, they wouldn't have ordered for information to be censored and removed via secret censorship orders.
That's not the first time this has happened. Earlier this year, Twitter blocked and unblocked accounts related to New Delhi's long-running protests by farmers.
What this kind of action does is build distrust in the state. Now, at a time when there are 300,000 plus cases every day, when so many people are suffering so much, the one thing that is needed is trust in the state.
India's current COVID crisis is a global problem. As the variant there rages out of control, it could undermine the progress other countries have made. This week, several countries, including the US, pledged resources to help. As the US plans to pull troops out of Afghanistan, many are asking what exactly will happen to the thousands of Afghan interpreters who helped troops on the ground and made sacrifices to do so. Newsy's Ben Shamiso explains pressure is mounting for Congress and the Biden administration to leave no person behind, including Afghan interpreters.
If I die in this mission, this would be my last picture.
Afghan refugee Jani Sinwari looks back fondly on his extraordinary service for the US Army.
2 Americans in this mission, plus 20 Afghan National Army.
For 7 years, he fought against the Taliban shoulder to shoulder with American and Afghan soldiers while serving as a key bridge between the two armies.
If there is no interpreter, how they can do this mission?
During his service, Sinwari saved the lives of 5 Americans and ended up on a Taliban kill list.
The Taliban, they called whoever supported the US mission, they called them traitor of Islams.
In 2013, he resettled to Virginia with his family after 3 years of intense vetting by the US State Department. Today, he's part of a growing coalition of advocates pressuring Congress and the Biden administration to not leave behind thousands of Afghan interpreters even as troops start coming home.
Those people will be tortured in front of their kids and family, and they will be killed. They put their life in the risk the same way I did, and they deserve to be here.
Many American soldiers who served in Afghanistan agree. They say bringing interpreters to the US as soon as possible is not only the moral thing to do, it's also in our own interest.
We can't do it without them. And if they don't believe that we're going to come through on our side of the bargain, they're going to be less likely and reluctant to help us.
More than 18,000 Afghans and their families are waiting for the US to process their special immigrant visas, a refugee program for interpreters who served at least 2 years in the US Army and face a serious threat as a result. Applications are required to be processed in 9 months, but the current wait time is around 3 years.
Hundreds of these applicants have been killed while waiting for their applications to be processed.
While a group of bipartisan lawmakers is pushing to add more visas to the SIV program, Adam Bates of the International Refugee Assistance Project says our Afghan allies deserve quicker and bigger solutions.
We're thinking more along the lines of airlifts to other U.S. territories such as Guam in order just to get people out of the country.
As for Sinwari, he says he's been inundated with messages from distressed Afghan interpreters ever since President Biden announced the imminent U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
They're not only asking, but they're begging to come here and be safe.
Ben Chamiso, Northern Virginia, Newsy.
Okay, don't go anywhere. I'm saying that because, yes, there is more, but also I have separation anxiety. FYI, at the Academy Awards, it's not just the folks who we see on stage during the televised event who go home with awards. Other people in lesser publicized film categories get stuff too. We're diving into the world of award wins and gaming with one of our favorite segments, Next Level Speedrun, starting with this. This year's Oscars achieved one milestone you might have missed. For the first time ever, a video game project has won an Oscar. Kind of. Maybe.
Vous avez toujours refusé d'aller en Allemagne? Pourquoi, à 90 ans, vous décidez d'aller dans le camp de concentration où votre frère est décédé?
This year's Oscar for short documentary went to Colette, a film about a French resistance fighter confronting her memories of World War II. The doc was produced in part for the VR video game Medal of Honor Above and Beyond by Facebook's Oculus division and game publisher Electronic Arts. The actual Medal of Honor game isn't really related to the film. It's mostly a standard Nazi-killing romp through World War II made for virtual reality headsets. But the game comes bundled with a collection of short films highlighting the lives and memories of World War II veterans, including Colette. Colette was later picked up by The Guardian for wider standalone distribution, which is probably how it caught the Academy's eye. Still, even a win by association is a pretty cool milestone for the gaming medium. Quick public service announcement here. On Friday, Nintendo drops the new Pokemon Snap game for the Switch platform. So if you're into taking photos of Pokemon, prepare accordingly. New Pokemon Snap casts players as wildlife photographers traveling through exotic environments to take pictures of Pokemon in their natural habitats. It's a follow-up to the original Pokemon Snap, a sensation that came out on the Nintendo 64 over 20 years ago. Sheesh, we are old. Wildlife photography might not sound like the most exciting pitch in the world, but early reviews note that Pokemon Snap offers the same sorts of chill vibes and routine repetition that drew a bunch of people toward Animal Crossing around this time last year. Another way to think about this, imagine playing Pokemon Go without ever leaving your home. I'm sold. Have you ever wanted to hear Jeff Goldblum pretending to be an elf? That's an uncomfortably specific fantasy, but you're in luck. The actor is apparently joining the Dungeons & Dragons podcast Dark Dice for its second season. The show has already released this concept art of Goldblum's character. I'll give you a second to really drink that in. Hollywood's been gradually getting more comfortable with Dungeons & Dragons. Actors including Vin Diesel, Terry Crews, and Stephen Colbert have all made cameos in D&D games, and comedian Dan Harmon even got an animated show out of his D&D campaign. Goldblum's first appearance on the show is May 12th, and I, for one, can't wait to hear what he thinks a D&D elf sounds like. If you like a good cry with your sitcoms, we might have a show for you.
Basically, we're going to make you cry, more or less once every episode from here on out.
That was the oddly specific Reza Aslan, who is an executive producer for the United States of Al, a story about a Marine combat veteran and Al, his former Afghan interpreter. Newsy's Casey Mendoza chatted with Aslan about criticisms of the new show and what else they're trying to accomplish aside from pulling at the heartstrings.
Al, over here! Oh.
United States of Al is a new sitcom from CBS and Chuck Lorre that tells the story of two friends, Riley, a Marine combat veteran, and Al, a former Afghan interpreter starting his new life in America.
Your son should be sorry for talking to you with that tone of voice.
I like him.
What we always say is that this show is not about the war in Afghanistan. This show is about what that war did to two people. One who's an Afghan and one who's an American.
United States of Al is especially relevant amid the Biden administration's announcement to remove all troops from Afghanistan by September 11th. And while the sitcom doesn't ignore that, executive producer Reza Aslan says the show is more focused on humanizing the politics.
We want to make sure that this character of Al is someone that people in this country, especially in the middle of the country, people who watch CBS at 8:30 at night, people who love sitcoms, get to meet.
Excuse me, but we haven't resolved a thing here.
No, but we are talking, which is a good first step.
Writers on the show include veterans and people of Afghan descent, and the cast includes 4 Afghan actors. The character of Al himself is played by Adir Kalyan, an actor of South Asian descent from South Africa. Critics were quick to point out that casting decision, alongside other ways his character is portrayed. A critic with RogerEbert.com wrote that Al's personality is an array of cliches about the Afghan people and Muslim ideology, while a critic with the AV Club said it was well-intentioned but too dependent on sitcom tropes.
We understood the response from, the sort of broader Middle Eastern community to the concept of this show. We get it. And I spent my entire life being misrepresented on television. The entire reason why I went into TV was precisely to change that.
Despite the skepticism and criticism from viewers, Aslan says the rest of the series will dive deeper into Al, his family back home, and the real-life fears faced by Afghan interpreters, including those still waiting for their special immigrant visas to move to the United States.
It takes a little while to actually develop characters, to learn about their backstories, to learn about who they are. And I think what I'm really excited about as we get to, later episodes is that you're going to be able to see, the true depth, not just of the character, but of the show itself.
Casey Mendoza, Newsy, Chicago.
When we're back, we'll tell you a bit about what happened after President Biden's first address to a joint session of Congress. If you didn't mind pushing back your usual bedtime last night, you would have caught something unusual, a response to President Biden's address from his own party. Newsy's Shira Tarlow tells us what message progressives had for the president.
Progressives have a message for President Biden, and Wednesday night they delivered it in a formal response to his first address to Congress.
The election of Joe Biden is the door but not the destination.
The Working Families Party, a prominent left-leaning group, tapped Congressman Jamal Bowman of New York to deliver its response.
We need to rebuild our nation with a new foundation. A foundation rooted in love and care and equality.
The move is unusual because Bowman is a member of the president's own party. Traditionally, the opposition party offers a response to the president's address to Congress, and it's usually critical. But the point of Bowman's speech wasn't to criticize the president or open a rift in the Democratic Party. Its goal was to complement the president's speech and highlight the kinds of actions the left wants to see from the White House moving forward.
A combination of affirming the things that we hear Joe Biden say that we align with, and then going a step further towards how we actually get there.
For decades, the party without control of the White House has delivered a rebuttal to presidential addresses. When the president is a Democrat, the response is usually given by Republicans and vice versa. This year was no different, with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina delivering the GOP's rebuttal.
Democrats want a partisan wish list.
The proliferation of social media has led other party leaders to jump in the game and offer their own responses via live stream. The practice has been embraced by Tea Party groups and major political figures like Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. The Working Families Party, for one, started delivering its own response, separate from the Democratic Party, during the Trump administration. It's continuing the tradition with the Biden White House.
I'm proud tonight to deliver the official Working Families Party response.
Last year, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts spoke on behalf of the Working Families Party. In 2019, the response was delivered by Wisconsin's Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, and Donna Edwards, the former Maryland Congresswoman, did it in 2018.
It's about inspiring everyday people to take up the mantle of change.
Top lawmakers and activists on the left are generally happy with the Biden administration so far.
President Biden has definitely exceeded expectations that progressives had.
They credit some of that goodwill to their dedication to holding him accountable and making sure their voices are heard at the White House. And the Working Families Party says Bowman was the right person to convey that message.
Congressman Bowman is a regular person. He is an educator that grew up in his district, that understands in a very real way the contradictions and challenges that everyday working class people are trying to deal with.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. I say reach out to us on Twitter because I'm not great on any other platform and barely functional with this one, so help me out, y'all. A small-town pharmacy is making a name for itself by becoming one of the biggest mass vaccination clinics in its area. And it's using this moment to prove why independently owned pharmacies are vital to the community. National reporter Thomas Hopaw has more.
In the middle of the Pacific Northwest, you can drive to a little island town in Washington called Oak Harbor.
Oak Harbor is a wonderful town. It's an island village. It's very slow. It's a military town.
Oak Harbor is a smaller town. You see the same customer here every day.
And in this small town of 23,000 people, you'll find Island Drug, with long lines for the COVID vaccine.
Pfizer, second dose.
I've come for my second vaccine.
Well, it's so funny because it's such a small little town that we were driving into. We were like very surprised to see how parked up the parking lot was, but that's incredible that they were able to get so many vaccines out.
How many people do you think you vaccinated today? Over 100 so far.
Being a smaller, independently run community pharmacy, we have the ability to flex when situations require.
And Aaron Searing, the pharmacist and owner of Island Drug,
Just like last time, 15-minute wait.
says these long lines for the vaccine were really something they didn't think was possible, because his requests for vaccines were originally denied.
We placed a lot of orders, and eventually one got accidentally fulfilled for 2,000 doses, which was more than we thought we were going to get in a couple weeks, and we managed to get through that in 4 days.
According to the state, Island Drug needed to get rid of 90% of their vaccines in 5 days. They got rid of them all in 4 days, allowing them to continue to receive more vaccines.
The lines have gotten outside where it's literally wrapped around the building right over here.
And as we got that big load, we learned what we could do. Me and Ty, the other pharmacist, did 950 one day as the only vaccinators, with our staff providing enormous support. Just this last Friday, we did 1,300. So we continued to find ways to improve the process and move people through and get vaccines in arms.
Island Drug became one of the biggest vaccination sites in Washington by vaccinating more than 50,000 people.
DORI.
Did you guys ever think you'd be recording that many?
Never. I think when we started this, we thought that we would just be one of many, and you know, not one in for 6, 7 counties. You know, we have people coming from halfway across the state.
Why'd you drive up from Seattle?
It was the only place we could find an appointment.
I'm thankful to the little drugstore that could.
Island Drug is an independent pharmacy, and across the country, independent pharmacies have struggled. According to JAMA Internal Medicine, independent pharmacies are 27% more likely to close, which is why Aaron is using this moment to prove how vital pharmacies like his are important to communities.
You know, there's been a lot of bad things with COVID, obviously. But when they've come in to meet that person who hasn't been out of the house in a year was jaw-dropping. And to meet 20, 30, 50 of them and to be able to provide them a gateway to get back to life again has been rewarding, to say the least. We proved we could do it, which means the easier stuff like the day-to-day pharmacy stuff we can do. And we look forward to working with the community every day, and then if the situation arises again, we're here.
I'm Thomas Hopper reporting.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week for more In the Loop. Same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.